G'day all, welcome back to Fry's Garage. It's been a little while, been busy, started a new job and life. So I thought it was time to maybe do another little video. So a how-to, carbies, tuning. We all know the little 383 stroker that we put together. Now I'm ready, because it's run in, shall I say, to start doing some tuning. So we'll dial in this carburetor and we'll get what's called the air-fuel ratio dialed in, so she doesn't burn any excess fuel, and at the same time it's not leaning out, so we don't damage the motor. So when we talk about air-fuel ratio, what is it? Well, basically it's the complete combustion with the perfect amount of fuel, and we're talking about gaseous, vapors, solvents, whatever it needs to burn per sort of volume of air for combustion. All right, so today we're talking unleaded fuels, petrols, and generally one stoic. So AFR is in stoic. That's the stoic metric. So we want around 14.2 to 14.7, which basically means 1 kilo of fuel requires 14.2 to 14.7 kilos of air for a complete perfect combustion. All right, so to do that in the old girls with carbies, EFI has them, and that's what's called an oxygen sensor, which is put into the exhaust system, all right, which basically measures the air-fuel ratio. Okay, so when we're talking air-fuel ratio, the higher the number, so we want a perfect ratio of, say, 14.5, all right? If we're up at 18 or 19, basically that's telling us it's lean, all right? So that means there is more air than fuel. Now, if we go the other way, which is rich, so let's say we had a reading of 12, that means we got more fuel than air, all right? So that's when you get your smelly exhaust and your clothes is smelly. Not a great situation. And also the price of fuel now, we really need to dial in these things so that's the most efficient as we can get. All right, so I have fitted what's called an AFR meter, which is basically an oxygen sensor. All right, I use AEMs because they are just really good quality. All right, so you'll see 11 to, I think it's 19 on the gauge basically. All right, so we'll get this baby warm and we'll see what the reading is at idle. All right, if we have too rich at idle, we're going to foul plugs and it's going to stink the garage and your neighbours next door. Not favourable, all right, so we can get that right. And then what we'll do is what we call a cruising or coasting AFR, which should be perfectly around the 14. And also under full acceleration, we sort of want to run just a little bit richer. So I'd be happy with a 13 or 13 and a half, just to make sure that that engine does not lean. And it stays a little bit cooler too with that little bit more fuel. All right, so the way to change this from the carby is we're going to change the jet sizes. All right, so this is a 750 double pumper made by Holley. So I've got a range of jets, so we'll see what the readings are and then we'll go back to the workshop and I'll drop some sizes or increase sizes depending on what we get. All right, so let's see what we got at idle. So we'll start her up, just let it set. All right, we're a goer. Now she's running a little cold still, so it might be a bit, how you going? Alright, so we're actually not too bad. Alright, it idles well. Yeah, 13 could be better. That's an idle, not engaged in gear. So let's put it into gear, which obviously an engine needs a little bit more fuel because it's under a torque converter load. So let's see what it goes down to. Alright, so we're not too bad. She's a bit of a lumpy cam, so it sort of bounces around a bit. But we're not too bad. We're sort of around the 14.3, 14.4. So I'm happy with that. Let's get it warmed up and see what happens. And we'll do some coasting, cruising, see what that is. And then full throttle and see what that is. And then we'll go to the workshop and sort it. All right, guys. See you soon. All right, guys. Engines to running temperature. we got a 13.1 to 13.7 AFR with our engine idle and in gear. Alright, so not too bad. It can be better, so we'll adjust the idle air screws just for that. We won't need to change the jet, so we can lean that in to really dial that in, so it basically smells like an AFR exhaust. Alright, so now people say, why do you bother doing this? Can't you just do it on the dyno? Well, I've put probably 3 engines on a dyno, and basically the guys say, Lee, why are you here? Because there's nothing that's left for us to do except for seeing what the engine puts out in horsepower and printing that data off. Alright, so you do not need to dial in your engine on a dyno. You just do not need to do it. Alright, you can get it very, very, very close. I'm going to say never. The race guys, well, they're running right on that limit. Alright, so they get every bit out that they can. But we're talking about cruising cars and your everyday drivers. Alright, even track, I've never really worried about it, and I've got pretty much 99% out of my motors and other people's motors. Alright, so you can see now it's sort of settling. We're up around the 14. You know what, I'd probably leave that. That's so bloody close that I'm happy with that. So let's go for a coast or a cruise at 60 and at 80, and let's see what our AFRs are, and then I'll sort of know what sort of if we need to go up in the jets or down in the jets. Alright, so if we go down in the jets, we are going leaner. If we're going up in the jets, we need to richen it. Okay, so let's go. Alright guys, let's go 60k an hour, see what we got. Kobe's holding the phone, my wife. Say hello, Kobe. Hello, hello all. Alright, 60k's an hour. Geez, 12.5 AFR. Way too rich. That's going to use a lot of fuel and foul plugs over time. Not a great result. So we need to make the jets smaller. So we'll go back and we'll put some smaller jets in and we'll go again. Alright, we'll come back. Alright, back into the workshop guys. Alright, now I'm going to take this carby off, alright, because there's a check valve which is part of the power valve circuit now, which causes issue. So I'm going to pop that ball bearing. But if we weren't to do that, all we'd be doing is taking off this bowl here. Alright, so we've got screw, screw, screw and screw. Right, take off your fuel supply. We'll take that bowl off and you'll see the main jets behind there. So basically I'm going to do that on the bench anyway. It's going to be easier because I'll take this whole carby off. Alright, so let's get it off and I'll see you in a second. Alright, we're back. Alright, carby's off. Now what we need to do is, this is the primary side. Whoops. This is the primary float bowl, and behind there is what we call the metering block. This is the metering block, all right, and in there is screwed the jets and everything, all right, so that's what we need to pull off. So I would say those jet sizes would be a 74, 76 from factory, and secondaries, which is when you kick your foot right into the full throttle, it opens up the secondaries, and those are generally 10 points more. So if the fronts were 74, then the rears will be 84, all right? So I've taken the screws, most of them out, so we'll just undo this one here, and that bowl should come off. Just bear with me. Alrighty, so we're off. All right, so let's pull it off. There we go. We've got a bowl gasket. We've got the float. Look at the colour of that float. And that, my friends, is our shitty fuels. All right, our fuels are basically a solvent now, and very dirty at that. All right, so imperative you have good fuel filter systems more than ever these days. All right, because the fuels are rat shit. All right, here we go. So we have a power valve. Zoom in, power valve. So basically these come in different sizes. That allows when you're off the throttle and just on the throttle, so just sort of coasting and just start accelerating, that engine's going to need a little bit of helping fuel. So you've got your accelerator plunger, but at the same time, the vacuum that your engine gives will allow the power valve to open and help that engine build up some fuel so we don't have any flat spots or hesitations. All right, primary jets. You see them? Okay. See how the holes are in the center? All right, so the engine just draws that in with vacuum. So basically, the bigger the hole, the bigger the jet, and the richer it's gonna be. All right, we know these are too big because my AFR at cruising is around 12.7, 12.8. We need to be around the 14 in any engine, doesn't matter. All right, we know it's healthy. Okay, so let's see what size these are, and we'll see what we got here. Hopefully I've got something smaller. I'm thinking we might put a 70 in if they're 74s. All right, I think if we put 65s in, it's going to be too small. But anything surprises me. All right, so let's do that. We'll put the carby back on and we'll go out on the road. All right, guys, we're back in the car. I've removed 74 size jets from the primary, which is the main cruising and acceleration side, and also we've fitted 66. All right, so we're down 8 points. So maybe a little bit lean, but I don't have a 70. I can't go halfway. So if we're good, I'll leave it. If it's a little bit lean, then I'm gonna have to buy a 70 size because 66 is too low. So she idles fine. I'm happy with 13.1. Run a little bit richer in drive, bit of a tight stall converter. So let's see, we'll get up to 60 and then 80 and see if we're any better. Remembering that we're at about 12.2 to 12.6. So at minimum, we've got to get over the 13. All right, so let's go. Right, 60 k's an hour. Just let it settle. Probably a little bit too lean. So there we go, 60k an hour. We're at 14.5-ish. Not bad. Not bad at all. Alright, I'm happy with that. No, that's settled now and I don't have any problems with that. Let's get up to 80 k's an hour. See where we're at. So 80 k's an hour, same. So I'm happy with that. That's pretty much one stoic. 14.5, 14.7. The stoic metric. So that means we're pretty much completing a combustion burn. So there's no richness in that fuel. Nothing's going to waste. So the next one I just have to play around with is the power valve because it's a little bit sluggish on and off, slight acceleration. But we'll see what happens there. Alright guys, I'm happy. There you go, job done. My fuel bill's going to come down. Engine's going to be happy. No spark plug fouling. And no shitty carbon valves. Put down the quarter mile. Alright guys, take care. And we'll talk soon. Ta-da. Alright guys, welcome back. Well, let's see what she does full throttle. So we'll have the primaries and the secondaries. So we don't really want any more than 13. That keeps a cool engine, plenty of fuel, no chance of leaning. So let's see what happens. So we'll just get past these cars in a safe area and we'll give it the boot. Alright, here we go. Beautiful. Perfect. Alright guys, that's what you want. That's tuning all in all really. Idle circuit power valves, I'll talk a little bit about that a bit later on. So take care all and happy carbying.